legally, I don't think we can ever tell anyone what they're doing wrong or why. So that was such a great gift to have someone say, stop, you're not here for audit. You've already, so we're not going to hire you, but you're great.
Keith, thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
You're welcome. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. We have Keith as a tax manager at AAFCPAs in our podcast today. Before we dive into your CPA journey, Keith, can you please introduce a little bit more about yourself to our audience?
Sure. I'm a tax manager, as you just mentioned, which means I do everything and I get things done. I work in our trust and high net worth individual group. So I work with people that have complicated tax orders and my best folks that I also know that you'll be able to edit as well. So I will take a breath. I work in our trust, estate, and high net worth group, and I just really like working with complicated individual tax returns. Folks that have alternative investments, invested in private equity, invested in hedge funds, derivatives, that's my jam.
I just said that trust and high net worth, it sounds a lot of fun because you will be like, oh, what rich people do to save money.
Not so much to save money, but just what rich people do, yes. I never in a million years thought that this would be where I am and that this would be where I thrive, but here we are.
Oh, so let's circle back from very beginning in your career. Keith, can you share with us your story, how you start with this accounting profession?
It's interesting that in our pre-interview you were talking about high school and college, and that was not my story at all, Rosey. We connected when at an event with Jason Statz, I said sort of my fun fact was that I didn't graduate high school, and yet I'm a CPA, which really makes me have an interesting fun fact for two truths and a lie, or icebreakers, and I use that a lot. So I was going to an all-boys Catholic school in the 1980s, and it was terrible. It was miserable. And after 2 years, I had the opportunity to start college early. There is a college out in Western Massachusetts called Simon's Rock College. It's affiliated with Bard College, and they were specifically targeting sophomores and juniors with strong critical thinking skills who were ready to go to college and do college level work instead of just sitting and doing some rote memorization for another 2 years in high school. So this was good and bad. It got me out of a Catholic boys' school, but if you start college at the age of 16, at the age of 18, you're being pressed to choose a major. And I don't know if that's a decision that an 18-year-old is ready to make. For me personally, it was a decision I was not ready to make, and I chose theater as a major. So there's another fun fact I throw out, is that I'm actually a theater major, and if we want to get really technical, I majored in performance art, which wasn't even really learning lines or doing plays. I could just sort of get up on a stage and be weird, and I got a bachelor's degree for it. I also knew that the classes were in the afternoon, didn't have to buy books. So you're getting the impression that at the age of 18, 19, and 20, I was not ambitious. I was not ready for anything professional in my life. I just wanted to party, and that's what I did. When I graduated college, I got a job on a farm, briefly, picking cucumbers out in Western Massachusetts, but no good at that. I was destined for better things. So then I started working at a gas station with my newly minted theater degree and did some gas station work. I did some market research. I was one of those people that called you up on the phone and asked you how happy you were with your bank. I did a couple of turns of service, tours of duty in fast foods such as Burger King. And I always have had a passion for music. So my big break was getting a job at Tower Records, and then working at Newbury Comics, and then working at a used record store on Newbury Street in Boston, Massachusetts. And that was that. From there, I started temping. I was again, I was very young, I was very immature. So we're talking now, I'm 28, 29 years old. Still absolutely no idea about accounting or the accounting profession, but I knew I was better than retail at this point. So I started temping, and I wanted to do bookkeeping as a temp. And I wound up actually doing IT work. So I temped around for a little bit doing scanning. Temping was really fun in the late 90s because there was a lot of demand. So I was valuable. And if I didn't like a job, I could just leave at lunch and work someplace else in the afternoon. There was that much demand. And where I wound up getting permanently hired was at a corporate travel agency doing their weekly airline report reconciliation. And then I started doing IT, corporate management reports. And I did not know this, but basically for 10 years, I was a low-level management accountant. I was doing cost accounting. Nobody ever told me that's what I was doing. I was doing things like preparing market share reports because we had corporate clients and they had contracts with major airlines, and the airlines wanted to know where they flew every month, what percentage was on their airline every month. And I had to produce all of those data reports. Internally, I would work on projects like how much is it costing us to sell an airline ticket? What if you factor in labor? What if you factor in the time that it takes to complete a reservation? Take in all of the factors and let's see if we can figure that out. So those were some awesome, amazing things I did at that company, but most of my job there was playing Bejeweled and waiting for people to need help. And usually it was help with a photocopier or how to make things bold in Word or how to reboot their computer.
A very interesting start.
We haven't even gotten to accounting yet. We haven't even gotten to accounting, but I can get
Wow.
there right now.
Yes. Wow.
You knew it was coming, Rosie.
Yes.
Along with all of this, I mentioned that I was definitely partying in college and in my 20s, and that included a lot of alcohol. So at the age of 32, I wound up entering recovery and getting sober. And this all kind of pieces together. In my 20s and early 30s, really all I cared about was drinking. I had very little ambition. And after getting sober, and after starting this job, where, it was a nice job. It was in an office. It was air conditioned. I wasn't working on a farm or in retail, but it wasn't really anything special. After about 8 years, I thought, I think I can maybe do more. So it was a combination of finally turning into an adult, a combination of realizing I had no retirement savings at all, no plan for the future, no emergency savings, no nothing. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and realizing I had no transferable skills. Everything I knew was self-taught. I knew an obscure airline reservation system and how to write scripts for it. I knew a little bit about SQL databases, but I had never taken a class, and that was it. So I started my accounting journey at the age of 39 years old. And the first thing I did was I happened to find out that I always kind of thought I wanted to be an accountant. I was one of those people, and I'm not the only one that has said this, that gets a little disappointed when they do their own tax return and you don't get to use all of the forms. It's like, oh, I only have a couple of forms. I thought this would be more fun. So I thought I had an aptitude for this, but I wasn't sure. And my first step was a small one. I went to H&R Block. If you don't know, H&R Block offers what they call a tax class, tax education class. And you pay them something like $300, and it's like a 10-week class on income taxes for individuals. In hindsight, you're basically being paid to be trained to work at H&R Block. So I learned two things from this experience. One, I had an aptitude for tax. I loved it. This basic little training class was really feeding me. I had an aptitude to be in school again. At the age of 39, the last time that I had been in school was at the age of 20. I got my bachelor's degree at 20. So it had been 19 years since I had been in school. From there, the second thing I learned was that I did not want to work at H&R Block. I have a lot of respect for people that work there, but I knew that that wasn't really my path. I wanted to work on more complicated things. I wanted to be a CPA. And I took that was in fall of 20 fall of 2009, I did that. And in spring of 2010, I started applying to graduate schools. And here in Boston, the school that I really was attracted to was Northeastern University. So here's what they offered. They had a joint MBA, MSA program, and it was specifically targeted towards people without a degree in accounting. They did not want people with bachelor's degrees in accounting. They are looking for people that have other skills that they can bring to accounting. They are looking for people that already have proven themselves to be critical thinkers, to be go-getters, to get things done, that maybe want to be accountants. Part of this, and my timing is off at this point. This was actually, I think, fall of 2009 that I was applying, which makes a little bit of sense because it might have been done. That was all when I was doing the H&R Block thing in 2009 fall. And then Northeastern, and the Northeastern program, and I probably shouldn't be bad-mouthing a school on a podcast, so we may want to edit the name out. We may want to tone this down. I'm gonna tone this down a little bit. I was not accepted to that program. The school loved me. No problem with whatever test you have to take, the LSATs, whatever you take you for graduate school. Great with that. Loved references, my experience, all of that. Part of the requirement for this intensive, it was a 3-semester program, I believe, was you needed to work an internship for a full semester. And they send you out during their interview process to secure the internship, which I could not do. The first place I interned, they flat out said, well, what about your age? So this was my first experience, and I am not the only one experiencing straight up ageism in accounting. And let's think about this, Rosey. How many interns and first-year associates go into Big Four and are expected to work 80 plus hours?
Yep.
Do you think someone in Big Four is comfortable telling a 40-year-old they have to work 80 hours? Do you think they want to introduce a 40-year-old into a class of 20-year-olds? Do they even want to bother? So a little bit of shame on Northeastern for sending me out on very inappropriate interviews at large firms where I would never fit in culturally. But one firm said, oh, yeah, it was great. And they told that to Northeastern. And Northeastern called me and said, yeah, they said it went great. You're in. And then the next day said, oh, well, they don't want you they would hire you, but they didn't want you as an intern. Now, of course, A, this is Christmas Eve. B, I had already told my family I was going to graduate school, so that's a little bit why I'm bitter about this story. It was handled extremely poorly. But it was the beginning of ageism, and dealing with that in my accounting journey. I did go to Suffolk University, and I got a joint master's degree, a master's in accounting and an MBA. 20 months, full-time. In retrospect, maybe not the smartest idea because, again, maybe I was burned. Maybe I was afraid, but I didn't do an internship. I started and again, don't quote me on my years. I started in fall of 2010, graduated in spring of 2012. So I did fall 2010, spring, summer, fall, spring of 2012, and graduated. Full-time, no working, all of that. So now I have my brand new degrees and zero experience. And I'm going on interviews and people are kind of looking at me and saying, thanks, but no thanks.
That's challenging.
Very. And I knew what was going on. And when we think of job interviews and we think of the legalities of what we can and can't say in an interview, nobody can say, and I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to open the door to it either. So I must have gone on 10 interviews playing this game. And they're like, we're hiring a whole bunch of 22-year-olds and we want them to work 70 hours. And you've got a lot of personality and you're probably not going to do that. There's another thing that was happening. I went on one interview with a firm north of Boston, about 45 minutes north of where I lived, to be an audit associate. And I didn't want to do audit. I was willing to do anything. I was willing to try anything. I would have taken pretty much any job. But audit, for me, I knew that I would prefer tax simply because I always wanted to know where the coffee was and where the bathroom would be. And I know that that can be an issue if you go on site with auditors. You never know where you're going to be sitting. Just not a thing that I thought that I would like. So I was primarily looking for tax positions for all of my spring semester, fall and spring, while I'm in school, interviewing constantly. But I went on one interview and for an audit job. And God bless the woman who said, I'm going to stop you right here after about 10 minutes and said, "You don't really want to be an auditor, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't actually. I'm hoping that I could someday fall into your tax group here. But you're right, I totally don't want to be an auditor. I'm just looking to get in the door." And she said, "Well, we don't have any tax positions open. But she didn't tell me how or why, but she indicated that I wasn't interviewing very well. And she said, I'm going to give you the name of somebody, a friend of mine, who can help you out." Again, after 12, 15 interviews and the graduation's coming up, I'm getting desperate. And I met with a gentleman down who owns a staffing agency. And he kind of put me through a quick mock interview. And he gave me the advice, which I took to heart. And it's so hard to be kind and give this advice kind of thing. He's like, "Yeah, you're interviewing terribly." People that know me would never believe that. But here's what I was doing, Rosey. I was interviewing as if I was going to go in there and be a partner. I was saying things like, "Oh, I want to work with small," just these grand ideas. And they want someone to sit in a seat and do tax returns for 55 hours a week. Can you do that? Can you interview for that position? And I said, "Oh, yeah, I kind of am being very pretentious in my interviews in thinking that I'm ready to be a manager." And the very next job I interviewed for, I got.
You just needed to twist a little bit, and then you got it.
Best advice. People definitely seemed to like me, but they were like, "Oh, he already thinks that associate work is beneath him," which wasn't true at all. But I was not affirmatively expressing that in my interviews.
That's very important, that a lot of people come into the interview, they have no idea what they did wrong.
Yeah. And legally, I don't think we can ever tell anyone what they're doing wrong or why. So that was such a great gift to have someone say, "Stop. You're not here for audit. You've already, so we're not going to hire you, but you're great. And I see something in you, and I'm going to find somebody that can help you." And he helped me. And like I said, landed the very next job I applied for.
That's amazing. Is that awesome? That lady who helped you, who just give you a little bit direction and then direct you to the right person, and then that person help you to land the first job.
Yep.
That's incredible. Sometimes you just need a little bit guidance and then you will just get to where you want. So is that the first job at Markham?
You are correct. I was a staff accountant at Markham LLP for 3 years.
Yeah. And how did you like that job?
I liked it. It was so well-rounded because their tax group, as an associate there, as a staff person, anything tax related would possibly come through your desk. Not-for-profit, sales tax, corporate tax of all kinds, individuals, the whole gamut. And while I've told you at the beginning, I really thrive with individuals and trusts and complicated family partnerships as well, but the interplay between trust and individual taxation. Believe it or not, at Markham, I did a lot of corporate salt work. And that's my second piece of advice, maybe, or who's counting. But in this podcast, it's not about the work, it's about the people when you're starting out. I hitched my wagon to the salt guy at Markham because he was a good guy. Didn't matter to me. It was all numbers and spreadsheets to me. Whether it was a corporate tax return or an individual or a trust or a not-for-profit, it was all the same work when you're starting out. And I liked him. I said, "I want to do more work for you." And he had plenty of work to give me. So I was I still did everything as an associate, but sort of my extra work and my extra area there was doing a lot of salt work.
Wow, I have to agree with you that people you work with are so important. Oh my God. I feel like the work you do everywhere is kind of the same, but the people make it different.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
either like you spend more time at work than you spend time at home with your spouse, with your
Yep.
significant partner, with your
Yep.
family members. So if you do not like people you work with, it's so difficult
Yeah.
to maintain like good spirit and then get the job done well and then stay good at mental health. It's
Absolutely.
very challenging. So yeah, I agree that you just choose to work with people you like. That's what a lot of us do the same. Like, oh, I
Good.
like that partner. I just want to work for him only. Can you just give me more job?
Huge, huge, huge piece of advice. Seek out the people that you're clicking with and let them know. Don't be afraid to say, do you have more work for me? Because I kind of enjoyed this project. I think where I am now, and I think most firms are still very at the staff level, you are kind of thrown everything, all sorts of tax work, at least in tax groups. I don't know about audit, but in tax, we're throwing you anything and everything. And if you find that somebody specializes in something, even if you don't think you'll like the work, but you like the way they work, go ahead and do it for a few years.
That's true. I'm just curious that in the first few years you work at Markham and you probably work with a lot of people younger than you. How
Yes.
was your experience working with people a lot younger than you and maybe even people who are a lot younger than you and then manage you and say, hey, you need to do this job. Hey, you need to do that job.
Oh, what a great topic to talk about, Rosie. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm tearing up. Everyone there was awesome.
Oh,
I did have to adjust mentally a little bit, but I have to admit, part of it's me. I'm very young at heart. I am very in tune with current culture, pop culture. I was not necessarily listening to the same music, but I was watching a lot of the same TV shows, so we were able to connect on that level. I still keep in touch with so many people. I've talked about it recently with somebody else, the way it's just the people you first work with are kind of like your litter mates. Like a litter of puppies, and I'm still in touch with many of them, still go out to lunch, and we got along great. Nobody treated me differently, definitely once they got to know me. I will admit, there were a few, in the first couple of months, a few people were like, didn't say anything, but I caught a glance or two. But I let it go, and I moved on, and I proved them wrong, let's say. It was, I had zero issues. All of those fears that I had from all of those interview processes, when the very first one happened with the internship, when the guy flat out said, what about your age? All of that was gone within the first few months at Markham.
that's really good. And I have to admit that you are very young at heart because I remember first time when I talked to you, it's just so easy to connect with you. And
Thank
then the
you.
conversation seemed like we can keep talking forever.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel like that, yeah. I definitely had to reverse some of my own prejudices about reporting to everyone was younger than me. I've since found out most of the partners there were younger than me. But I had to also say, I look like I know stuff, but I don't. Later in my career, as I moved into the senior accountant role, and I was starting to sit in on client meetings with clients, I would have a partner younger than me as leading the meeting, and here I am, the older person, as the senior accountant. And I have a distinct memory of a meeting where I will never know if this was a gender issue or an age issue, but questions kept getting directed to me. And it's like, oh, no, no, no. Like, she's the smart one. I'm just taking notes and learning, thanks. I'll never know, like, what was up with that. I will say that once I got my feet in the door, any fears of ageism have melted away. It pops up occasionally, and I hate that 10, 12 years ago it was almost prominent, that it was blatantly stated. So maybe we are coming a long way with that.
That's interesting because it's opposite to my husband. He's not an accountant. but he's kind of one of the youngest person in the company, and then he worked
Okay.
with a lot of people who are a lot older than him, and he
Uh-huh.
always comes home and say, "Oh my God." People always say, I wish I could look older. I was like, why would you say that? He was like, well, if I look older and then I will be in the same page with other people in my company and they will respect me and they wouldn't think that I'm like their kid and they treat me like I'm their son, something like that. Because
Yeah.
he's a manager and then he managed people older than him.
Yeah.
It's the challenge when people do not have open mind like you do
Yep.
and they think that, wow, that manager is younger than me. Why do I need to listen to that manager? Something like that is
Uh,
it's challenging for him.
it is. It is. I haven't felt it or noticed it. It could certainly be the organizations I've been a part of. It could be my own changing, releasing that bias that I had been given. But if anyone out there is in their late 30s and thinking of going back to graduate school and being a 40-year-old intern or 40-year-old tax associate, I'm living proof.
Yep, that's so true. Anything could happen as long as you put your mind to it.